Okay, Likita, are you there? Hello.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so let us start. Fine. You hear me well, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen and we were doing constitutional design. Hmm. Okay, you see my screen, right?
Yes.
Okay, hi Jitendra.
Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening, good evening. Okay. So last class we were doing constitutional design and we are going to continue this. We had done, yeah, we had done up till here. Making of the Indian Constitution. So we'll do a quick revision. Okay. So tell me first of all, what do you all understand? We spoke about Nelson Mandela. So who was Nelson Mandela? Anybody? Nikita? Who was Nelson Mandela? Hello?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. You have any idea who was Nelson Mandela? Which country did he belong to?
Ma'am, he is from South Africa.
Yes, good. He was from South Africa. He was a nationalist leader. Okay. And he fought against racial discrimination. Fine.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
as we spoke about South Africa, there was the black majority. About 80% was black majority and the colored, and the rest was the white were in the minority, but they were in power, and they and what was there in South Africa? Segregation. What is segregation? All the public places like trains, buses, schools, hospitals, beaches, etc. were separate for the whites and for the blacks and colored. Okay, even the churches were separate. The black people were forbidden. The black and the colored were forbidden from living in white areas. This is called segregation. Okay. Now, what is apartheid? Apartheid. Question is going to whenever there's a question about South Africa, apartheid. What is apartheid? This question will come. Okay, so it is a policy of racial segregation under which all people were classified and separated on the basis of race. Okay, and many restrictions were imposed on the blacks and the colored who formed more than the 80% of the population. Okay, so after that, now now let's talk about India. Okay, now India is a republic. Why do we call India a republic? India is a republic because the head of the state is the president is a elected person and it is not a hereditary position. Fine. Let us do more revision what we have done. Now let's talk about okay about the Indian Constitution. Okay, now the what is the similarity between South Africa and India? In South Africa, there was a struggle against the racial discrimination, but in India there was a struggle between diversity was there. Okay, and the struggle was religious because people fought on the name of religion and there was a lot of diversity. So there was a big problem faced while making the Indian constitution. What is this problem? It was difficult to make a constitution for a large country with a diversified group of population like India. The country was born through a partition. The British had left India with a partition with a partition on the basis of religious differences and which was a traumatic experience and I think about lakhs of people had died. It was a very difficult situation. It was very difficult to make a constitution of a large country with a diversified group like India. and the British had left the rulers. The British had left the rulers of the princely state. There was many princely, small princely states in India. That is the Nizam, for example, the Nizam of Hyderabad. There was a king in Srinagar, Jammu and Kashmir, and also there was a princely state in Assam. So the British had left to the rulers of the princely state to decide whether they wanted to merge with India or with Pakistan or remain independent. So this was a difficult situation for India while making the Indian constitution. So, however, how was the constitution formed? Okay, now Motilal Nehru and 8 Congress leaders had prepared a draft constitution of India in 1928. Fine. So this gave voting rights to India, and this was also picked up by the Government of India Act in 1935 that was formed by the British. So this from this they took the Constituent Assembly of India, and a body of 299 representatives were elected in every part of from every part of India. So let me ask you more questions. Okay. Okay, now when was the new national flag of le- let's leave it. We'll talk about India now. Okay. Okay, now who was the president of the Constituent Assembly? It was Dr. Rajendra Prasad. Okay, I think I have it here. Okay, so the Constituent Assembly was formed in 26th November 1949. Okay, and the Republic Day was celebrated first in 26th January 1950. Fine. And now let's talk about the Constitution. Now, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar was the chairperson of the drafting committee, and there were made about 2,000 amendments were made in the Constitution, and then after 200 amendments only it was finalized. The first drafting was done in 1928. Sorry, 1928. Now, what was the guiding rules of the Constitution? The guiding rules came from Gandhiji, okay, and the Gandhi's journal that was in Gandhiji's journal that was in Young India that he had written in 1931, The Dream and the Promise. Mahatma Gandhi was not a member of the Constituent Assembly, yet there were many members who followed his vision. In 1931, he wrote this in his magazine Young India about what he wanted the Constitution to do. This dream of India that has eliminated inequality was shared by Dr. Ambedkar. So his policies were taken although he was not the member of the Constituent Assembly. Okay. The first policy that we took up in Constituent Assembly was inequality should be abolished. And now let's go to the philosophy of the preamble. Okay, now what is the preamble? The preamble is an introductory statement in a constitution which states the reasons and the guiding values of the constitution. This is the preamble on the side. We, the people of India, having solemnly resolved to constitute India into a sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic republic. Okay. Now, justice, social, economic, political, liberty of thought, expression, belief, faith and worship, equality of status and opportunity, and to promote among them all fraternity, assuring the dignity of the individual and the unity and integrity of the nation. This is the preamble. Now we are going to dissect this and we are going to understand each part, each part of the preamble. So far, everybody understand the Constitution of India.
Yes.
I will send this notes to you. Okay. If you want, you can write what is the preamble. That question will come. Okay, so the preamble is an introduction or to the constitution which contains the idea and basic principles of the Indian constitution. Let us study the preamble further. Okay, now we the people of India, sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic, republic, justice, liberty, equality and fraternity. So what we the people of India means is the constitution has been drawn up and enacted by the people through their representative and not handed down to them by a king or any outside power. Okay. Next, what is sovereign? People have supreme right to make decisions on internal as well as external matters. No external power can dictate the government of India. Means it is the citizens of India who are going to have the supreme right. It is the ultimate right. Means it is the welfare of the people of India. Okay. We are going to talk about socialist. Okay, now wealth is generated socially and should be shared equally by society. Okay, government should regulate the ownership of land and industry to reduce socio-economic inequalities. It is not that somebody is rich, so the government of India will give away the land to the rich. Okay, it should regulate the ownership of land and industry. Okay, so that everybody is served in the society equally. Okay, so this is socialist. Next, let's talk about secular. Okay, now citizens have complete freedom to follow any religion. Yeah, so this is there in the constitution, freedom to follow any religion, but there is no official language. Mean, like there are many countries that is a Muslim country, that is a Christian country, but in India we have freedom to follow any religion. There is no official religion. Government treats all religious beliefs and practices with equal respect. Okay. So next comes the democratic. A form of India is a form of government where people enjoy equal political rights. Okay, elect their rulers. We have the right to elect our leaders and hold them accountable. If anything goes wrong, we are going to question them. Okay, the government is run according to some basic rules. Okay, that is they have to serve the country. They have to serve the people of India. Okay. Next, let's talk about republic. Okay, that the head of the state is an elected person and not a hereditary person. The position means there is no unlike British, there is a hereditary position. There is a king, the prince, and queen, and all that. Okay, so it is not so in India. Okay, let's talk about now we understand. Let's talk about justice. Okay, justice. Citizens cannot be discriminated on the basis of caste, creed, or religion. Okay, justice is equally served to all. Okay, liberty. There are no unreasonable restrictions on the citizens in what they think, how they wish to express their thoughts. They can, and that has been happening in our country very well. People are talking out their thoughts, they're talking out their whatever they think, and they even protest, they even arrange rallies, they arrange functions. Okay, and everybody they express their thoughts and the way they wish to follow up their thoughts in action. Okay. Equality, the government should ensure equal opportunity for all. Means it is not so there are reservations, yes, but the government ensures equal opportunity for all. Unlike there is no discrimination on the basis of caste, color, creed, anything, religion, nothing. Okay, so that is called equality. The last and not the least is fraternity. All of us should behave as if we are members of the same family. We are fellow Indians. Okay, no one should treat a fellow citizen as inferior. That is the main reason. That is a big problem of untouchability, and scheduled caste and scheduled tribes are there, and untouchability was very prevalent in India. So there was a law against this that prohibits anyone to treat a fellow citizen as inferior. Okay, all of you understand till now? The preamble, do you understand the preamble?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, should I then I move forward? The institutional design of the constitution. Okay, so there are main basic institutional design, that values and philosophy, and we have three main features here, that is the legislative, executive, and judiciary. Let me give you the reason here. We've done the making. We've done equality, fraternity. All of us should behave as if we are members of the same. No one should. Okay, we've done this. Okay, now the institutional design. Somebody read this. Likita, you want to read? Institutional design. Are you there, Likita? Sampath, are you able to do one thing? Just read this. Okay, fine. Yeah,
Design
you start with institutional design.
is a constitution is not merely a statement of values and philosophy. As we noted above, a constitution is mainly about embodying these values into institutional arrangements. Much of the document called Constitution of India is about these arrangements. It is a very long and detailed document, therefore, it needs to be amended quite regularly to keep it updated. Those who crafted the Indian Constitution felt that it has to be in accordance with people's aspirations and changes in society. They did not see it as sacred, static, and unalterable law. So they made provisions to incorporate changes from time to time. These changes are called constitutional amendments. The
Okay,
constitutional
hold on. So you understand, because time is changing, so they have those who have designed the constitution, institutional design, they do not see it as sacred, static, and unalterable. So there is a provision to incorporate changes from time to time, and this is called constitutional amendment. Please continue.
yes, ma'am. The Constitution describes the institutional arrangements in a very legal language. If you read the Constitution for the first time, it can be quite difficult to understand. Yet, the basic institutional design is not very difficult to understand. Like any constitution, the Indian Constitution lays down a procedure for choosing persons to govern the country. It defines who will have how much power to take which decisions, and it puts limits to what the government can do by providing some rights to the citizen and cannot be violated. The remaining three chapters in this book are about the three aspects of the working of Indian Constitution. We shall look at some key constitutional provisions in each chapter and understand how they work in democratic politics. But this textbook will not cover all the salient features of the institutional design of the Indian Constitution. Some other aspects will be covered in your textbook next year.
Okay, so this is it. Here are some false statements. Okay, now the exercise has come. Okay, so institutional arrangements are made. The legislative is there, the executive is there, the judiciary is there. Okay. Now, like we spoke about the constitutional amendment. Okay. So, in constitutional is a very long and detailed document. Therefore, it needs to be amended quite regularly to keep it updated. Those who crafted the Indian Constitution felt that it has to be in accordance with people's aspirations and changes in society. They did not see it as sacred, static, or unalterable law. So they made a provision to incorporate changes from time to time, and these changes are called constitutional amendments. So whenever there's a question arises on institutional design or what is a constitutional amendment, you have to talk about this. So like any constitution, the Indian constitution lays down a procedure for choosing persons to govern the country. It defines who will have how much power to take which decision. It puts limit on to what the government can do by providing some rights to the citizen that cannot be violated. Okay. So we have completed the chapter. Anybody has any question, any doubt, or on any
No,
topic,
ma'am.
I can repeat. Okay. Let's do the question and answers now. Here are the some false statement. Identify the mistake in each case and rewrite these correctly based on what you have read in the chapter. Leaders of the freedom movement had an open mind about whether the country should be democratic or not after independence. The leaders of the freedom movement had a conscience that after independence, India will be a democratic nation. Okay. Next, members of the Constituent Assembly of India held the same views on all provisions of the Constitution. So, members of the Constituent Assembly in India held the same view on the basics, on the basic principles. Okay, basic principles of the Constitution. A country that has a constitution must be a democracy. A country that is a democratic must have a constitution. Okay. A constitution cannot be amended because it is the supreme law of a country. A constitution can be amended with time and the needs of the citizen. Fine. Next, we have which of these was the most salient feature underlying the conflict in the making of a democratic constitution in Africa. Okay. Now the answer is a conflict between the colored minority and the black majority was the most underlying conflict. Okay. The uh, between the white minority, right here. White minority and the black majority was the most underlying conflict in the making of the South African constitution. Which of these is a provision that a democratic constitution does not have? Okay, the answer is name of the head of a state. We have neither following. Okay, uh, I will send you this. Let's do some more detailed questions that will come into your paper. Let me add it here. Okay. Let me add it here. Okay. So on some of the very short questions that mostly we will have, all of you will see my screen, right? Okay, who was Nelson Mandela? Okay, so he was a nationalist leader of South Africa who fought against racial discrimination. What would have happened if in South Africa, if black majority had decided to take revenge on the whites for all their oppressions and exploitation? Violence would have erupted, okay, in South Africa. Bloodshed would have taken place. A great loss of life and property would have taken place. What is meant by segregation? All the public places like trains, buses, schools, hospitals, beaches, etc. were separate for the whites and blacks. Even the churches were separate. The blacks were forbidden from living in white areas. This is called segregation. Okay, now which type of tactics did the white racist government of South Africa use to continue to rule? Okay, so uh, they used detaining, torturing, and killing of thousands of black people and colored or black and colored people. Okay, now what is apartheid? Okay, apartheid is the policy of racial segregation. What is segregation? We just studied, and now what is apartheid? Apartheid is the policy of racial segregation, and this term was is specially used for South Africa. Okay, and it is classified and separated on the basis of race. Many restrictions were imposed on the blacks, who formed more than 80% of the population. Okay, how many years in life Nelson Mandela spent in jail? 28 years. When was the new national flag of the Republic of South Africa hoisted for the first time? It was on midnight of 26th April 1994. Okay, highlight any one similarity between the story of South Africa's struggle for freedom and the Indian nationalist movement. Okay, so both the movements were fighting against the whites of Europe who had come to these countries as trading companies. Okay, these lines, I have cherished the idea of democratic as a free society in which all persons live together in harmony and with equal opportunities. Who said this? Okay, you will have to study it. This is said by Nelson Mandela in South Africa. Why is India called a republic? India is called a republic because the head of the state, that is the president, is an elected person. Okay, and it is not a hereditary position. What do you mean by political equality? Every citizen is entitled to all the constitutional rights and freedom without making distinction of any kind like gender, race, status, religion, etc. Equal voting rights to all adult citizens of our country, be it rich or poor, with no discrimination, okay, comes under political equality. Anybody can stand for an election. Everybody has the right to vote, okay, irrespective of of gender, race, status, or religion. Okay, now this is important. What is meant by the term preamble? Yeah. Okay, so the preamble is an introduction to the constitution which contains the ideals and basic principles of the Indian constitution, right? Now mention one feature of the foreign constitution which inspired the constitution. Okay, now this was the practice of parliamentary democracy in Britain that they took from Britain, and also the Bill of Rights in the United States. So okay, now we'll talk about the Constituent Assembly. Who was the president? Dr. Rajendra Prasad. What was the main contribution of Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel after independence? Now, he was a very important person and very dignified. He played a very important role in the integration of Indian princely states. He went to the kings or the Nizam of also to join India. Okay. Now name any two prominent members of the Constituent Assembly. You can talk Rajendra Prasad, Baldev Singh. Okay, now with reference to the Constituent Assembly, answer the following question. When was its election held? It was in July 1946. Okay, who was the president? Dr. Rajendra Prasad. Who was appointed the chairman of the drafting committee? It was Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. And when was the constitution passed by the Constituent Assembly? It was 26th November 1949. Okay. Now, when was the Republic celebrated first? Anybody? 26th January 1950. Okay. Okay. Now, what is the Constituent Assembly? We have done this. The drafting of the document called the Constitution was done by an assembly of elected representatives. How many representatives were there? Anybody? 299. 299 representatives they were elected from all over the country. What do we call our state where head of the state is an elected and not an hereditary person? So this is called republic. Okay, now when we come to the longer questions, so explain the term apartheid and what were its implications. Okay, those implications were the white Europeans imposed this system on South Africa. White rulers treated non-whites as inferior. Okay, they did not have the right to vote and they were forbidden to live in white areas. And if they were allowed to work with only with permit. They were separate trains, buses, hospitals, schools, etc. for the whites and the blacks. Okay. So, anybody has any question? I will send the question and answers to you. Okay. And I will want you all to please read the chapter. Then only study the question and answers. Then you will get a better idea. Fine.
Amen.
Any suggestion on what chapter should we take next? Hello? Anybody? Nobody has any question? And then I'll take up a chapter from on my wish. Okay, I'll decide the chapter. Okay. Okay, then bye all of you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Bye bye.